for this guy, there's like 3 topics that are kind of all over the place. So we'll just get them out real quick. So first, we've got bright noise and its involvement, and resonance in general, and how we kind of deal with that. So bright noise in this sound had a pretty big impact. I'll turn it up so you can hear it a little bit more. Here you go. You can hear it right at the beginning. Now, what I did here is I attached an envelope to the sound, to the bright noise. So you only hear it at the beginning. This is my second envelope here. Starts at minimum, pretty quickly gets to max, and then hangs at max. So my maximum here is having this envelope just shut the amp off, and it brings the color down of the bright noise. So I remember the first time I heard sidechained white noise, and I was like, oh, shit. I think it was like Red Line, maybe by Wolfgang Gartner. And that was a while ago. That was a good 2-3 years ago. So I'm sure he wasn't the first one to do it. And I certainly know that if you're doing it nowadays, doing just white noise sidechained, it's kind of tacky. So we want to look for ways to use white noise, but not have it be that thing that's just like... So in this case, add an envelope so your white noise just goes on at the beginning. Listen to what it would have sounded like if I didn't do that. You just kind of like roll your eyes and you're like, oh, you turned on the white noise. Cool. So put an envelope on it so it's only coming in at the very beginning. Everyone's happy. Now, I didn't notice that I didn't do this. I didn't have it off and then only come in sometimes. You could use this envelope however you want, but I wanted it to be, for the most part, on throughout all of my macroing, all that stuff. I've only got one here that turns it off entirely. So it's not something to be afraid of. Just don't have it like on max, like while you're holding your button down or your note. So resonance in general, couple things with it. I used I'll call it a resonance filter, resonance layer here, and it really made this sound better. You can tell I cut out all the lows, and it's just, even that first little, that initial sound is cut out, and it's only in the second half that you hear it really like open up, and there's like a ton of high-pitched frequency resonance feedback stuff. So resonance in general, I don't really like the sound because it's usually very pitchy by nature. It boosts things in a way that's not my favorite. Scream resonance, resonance on a scream filter, usually pretty good because without a little note, without using resonance, a scream filter becomes just a low pass filter. So that you can tweak the scream knob all you want, won't work without resonance. Cool. Low pass filter, a little bit of resonance, great. But really jacking the resonance up can be very dangerous. Same with the feedback. It kind of sucks. I'm sure you've had experience with that. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is try to find a way to use, I just duplicated this patch and then tweaked it a little bit. So I got that high pitch frequency-ish resonance sound. So don't be afraid of resonance. And in fact, try to have it along with a big sound that you have, but it's got to be tasteful. Is this tasteful? Maybe, maybe not. So let me show you with the regular sound by itself. That's fine, but I just wasn't stoked on it. So I added this resonance thing to kind of fill things up a little. And overall, if we're being honest, I wasn't super stoked on this track at all. This was the one I did just before the latest trap thing. Because, I don't know, it was kind of forced. I was listening to a Melbourne song, and I was like, oh, let me try something like that. Didn't come out great, but I did. The reason I'm making this video is I did like this whole white noise being a part of the sound. I did tweak, and another reason that, this will be a long video, it's fine. Another reason that I did, oh God, there we go, real quick. There we go. Another reason that I did make this video is this patch I think I've given away before. hits one of my sawtooths. It's one of my super saws. And I tweaked it in a way, just a couple of places that turned it into a completely different sound. Like if you just listen to the original patch, it sounds like this. I think it's this guy, yeah. All the same macros are in play there, but the difference is there's certainly some processing on it, but the main difference is that I took a patch that I had and I tweaked it until I found something even cooler. So tweaking patches is a thing that's been it's been a thing forever, but if you can make your own patches and then tweak it, you'll have even more sounds to pick from that won't just be stealing other people's or, you know, copying Mac J. So, in summary, resonance, have a resonance layer. It can be pretty cool. Make sure to tame it and make it good. Number 2, bright noise, white noise. Have it at the beginning as an attack phase. Okay, this next topic is going to be a little bit annoying because I've seen this kind of video before, but we'll just go with it. So the thing I wanted to talk about in this sound is how much the modulation oscillator played a role in the fundamental tone. So give it a listen. Okay, without it. So and I wanted to talk about what each of these is doing and kind of why and what's up there. Ring modulator. I threw the LFO that's largely responsible for the whole that whole thing. I threw that on the ring modulator, and I think having if you're going to put an LFO on something, ring modulator is pretty safe. Phase, not so much. Phase is pretty much going to add tone and change your and add a little bit of distortion. That's kind of my real world description of what phase does. So in this song, without it, this is what it would have sounded like. So really hollow. And ring modulator, it doesn't just affect the volume. It does give it I'll call it volume tone, where it's just it's a subtle shift, but it is definitely noticeable. It made the whole sound. So I have this other patch here, so we can talk about what's going on. You can kind of understand it. Let's just turn this off. We're good. So we have one oscillator that's just a sawtooth, nothing fancy, okay? And we have our modulation oscillator. Modulation oscillator basically does what it says. It oscillates something in order to modulate whatever you have up here that you decide, I'm going to attach it to oscillator 2, oscillator 3, whatever. It's your choice. So this is the speed at which it does it. It's basically a mini LFO that follows your pitch speed. In real terms, here's what happens. Let's go to ring modulator, turn it all the way up, and play it. You can hear pretty clearly that it just turns the volume on and off. Okay, that's very straightforward. Listen to what happens if I do the same thing, turn this off, and use this LFO. Okay, back to the modulation oscillator, and this off, listen. It's the exact same effect. Having the amp shut on and off, turning the ring modulator on at really low, that's the same thing. So things get a little crazy as you go higher, and that's what makes it cool. With modulation oscillator, it always is going to sound pretty normal or good. It's going to work as long as it's matching an octave of your same pitch. So if you do anything to this, do it to this too. That's kind of the moral of the story there. Phase. So ring modulator affects volume, and that's what it does to sounds. It either dampens them, kind of gets rid of a little of that boxy sound. So this guy's kind of soft, doesn't do too much. That's drastic. So phase now affects the pitch. So once you get into the upper, I was going to say echelon, higher pitches, higher speeds for this guy to wiggle back and forth, it starts to get pretty distorted. Now check this out. If I turn phase modulation off, this is all off, nothing there, and I've got my handy LFO here. Listen to when I turn this LFO off and this on. Same thing. It's kind of a sine wave. It's like a sine wave, but with a little bit of square. I was messing with that a little bit. It doesn't sound exactly like a sine wave. Maybe I'm wrong there, so listen till it's just a sine wave. And this, it's probably just a sine wave. Yeah, fuck. Probably a sine wave. That's fine. So, it's basically just taking a sine wave, attaching it to the pitch. Watch what happens. We turn it up. Now, if I don't use this, let's just use this guy. Turn it on. LFOs are limited by only going so fast. It's usually anywhere between 20 hertz and 100 hertz. That tends to be the limit. Let's see, 2 times a second, 2 hertz, about 4 hertz, 10, 20, 40 maybe. So this guy is not limited by that. So it can push things a lot farther, and it will be directly linked to how fast your actual oscillator is wiggling and going. So that's, I don't know how good that is of a thing to know. But the cool thing, I will say, is that phase, if you want to know what it does, is unlike the ring modulator that just gives you like kind of some volume tone things, this really gives you some distortion tone changes. So I always use this in basses because it's pretty beefy. Ring modulator, you can get away with doing this. You can kind of wiggle it around. And I would almost never go at -64. I usually keep it around 0 or -12, whatever. You can wiggle this around and it'll still sound good. Phase, on the other hand, is not that's not the case. If you wiggle this and kind of use this as a envelope, go put an LFO on here, it's just going to be really distorted. So I usually like to pick a spot, and if I'm going to do any wiggling, it'll be like down here. So that's phase. Position is literally just taking the wavetable position and going back and forth. So let's check it out. Let's turn this off. Here we go. -64. And there we go. It's going from left to right to left to right. I turn this off. We'll find the rate. LFO on here has the exact same effect. Go faster. It's the same as if I just did this. There we go. So that is what it's actually doing. Now here's the kind of real world how it affects it. I use wavetable position modulation in the modulation oscillator. I use that the least because it's, for whatever reason, hasn't had the biggest. It has the smallest impact out of all of them. Maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I find myself I'll try turning it on, messing with it, and it just doesn't really work very much. I think the reason is the pitch that I'll choose just doesn't do a whole lot to it. You can definitely hear it changing there. It's like a little bit more of an intense sawtooth. But these guys kind of take precedent and are my priority for making them sound good. So I usually find a spot where ring modulation and or phase sounds good, and then I'd try this as an afterthought. So I think if you want to make this work for you, start with this. Pick a pitch that sounds good to you, because, I mean, check it out. Even there, when I'm doing this, I'm at random pitches. Notice how it's not really throttling the sound. Just a little bit. Phase, though, Jesus. Ring modulation, more so than position. So this is going to do the least. It's going to have the least impact, and that's a good thing because that means you can modulate it a lot more. You can go crazy with pitch, and it won't totally destroy your sound like this will. Side note, feel free to use that. Okay, last but not least, we're here. I know this sucks. Let's just get through it. So filter modulation, filter FM. So frequency modulation. Great. I know how to say FM. Woo. Turn this off. Now it's really the same thing. It's just taking this knob, the cutoff, and it's wiggling it at this speed. So let's turn, we got our LFO off. Okay. Let's turn our filter FM off. Back. Now, the reason, and this is kind of interesting, the reason that I ended up going with this guy and thinking that it was kind of a mix of a square wave is that when I did it for the low pass and compared with the filter FM versus the LFO, listen to what it sounds like. That's not a straight up sine wave. This is a straight up sine wave. I don't know if I said sawtooth. I meant sine, but I found that I got a. Oh, here we go. There we go. At the end of this, right at the peaks, it just has a little bit of a tail. So I thought this was closer, or kind of shuts off. Tell me what you think. See, it just doesn't have that like kind of wavy tail to it. So that was kind of interesting. But overall, you get the idea that if we pull this, let's turn this off, turn the rate up, sounds shitty right here. This does the same thing. Boy, does that sound good. So if you're ever wondering what this is all about, what it does, it's changing your cutoff knob somehow. So give it a try. That's the long-winded thing for number 2. Okay, I hope you guys won't hate me forever because this is definitely a long video, but I wanted to show you crazy routing that came up with this this track, this preset. Okay, so let's listen to the sound again. God, what a shitty backing track, by the way. So, oops, I don't care. Whatever. So, here's what I was trying to figure out, and it took me a couple tries here. I was trying to figure out. I mean, really, I was trying to figure out what I did. Notice that when this macro is all the way off, it's very intense. There's a lot going on. So I was trying to track like what the hell is going on, and it's pretty. It's kind of a lot. So here's if I had to give this a little title, it would be "Modulating Modulators Kinda Sucks." Here's why. So I guess my goal was if I just look at what this is doing is I've got my amp envelope number 4, and let's just play it. Okay, with nothing on it, there's definitely, it's going something else over here. I think that's LFO-7. But I did like the thought of not just having this full-on version, but having a version that was like, that kind of acted like a pluck. So I was like, you know what? Let's try to get some kind of plucky thing going. Let's use Performer 6 because it'll almost be like this. Don't, just like a pluck shape usually looks like, but it's gonna be back and forth, back and forth. Whoa, that's weird. That's weird. What the hell was that? This was moving too. Weird. Anyways, so you can see right here exactly what I was thinking. Dun 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 dun. Just kind of gives it a little bit of a pluck shape. Notice that it's not like this though. This would be much more subdued. Reason being, it's going to go much closer to the max, which the max value here is all the way off. That sounds counterintuitive, but if you follow the green, I'm telling it to go not halfway, not a quarter of the way, all the way off. So this is going to go almost all the way off and then finish up. It's not going to go off, on, off. It's not going to be like that. So I didn't go like this, which is like actually kind of cool. I went for more sound and then a little bit of that. Ding, 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 ding. Now, what is this? Okay, why is that going on? Because this line is all the way up. It's my max here. So what I did with this was if I were to just have this guy down here using this shape for the performer, it would make this go all the way to its max. Follow the green line. It would essentially get down to here and stay there after kind of hangs there. So what I did is I put it in between, which is basically going to shave this guy off a little bit, make it a little bit less. It's going to make it less intense. So listen. Okay, so bear with me here. So I have this pluck effect. I have this like totally off thing, and having this in between is going to just tone this down. Almost the same effect as just bringing the amp down, but a little bit different. Now, envelope 3. Envelope 3 also is a part of the team here. So check this out. Envelope 3 is doing the same kind of shape as envelope 2. You'll remember from our bright noise, it's a slightly different shape, but that's only turned on when I have this all the way up. So it takes whatever the value is and just says, hey, go from 0 to the end of the blue. 100% max. Bam. So when I turn my macro off, let's press play. Okay. We get this toned down thing. And the reason it's toned down is obviously this guy is attached, this performer is attached to the envelope for the volume. So I'm turning stuff down, which I think is totally, I prefer actually having sounds that are a little bit more condensed than just going nuts and going crazy. So having control of it with volume is great. When I turn this up, this guy's on and it's toned down. I had envelope 3 here, shut this down and turn the shelf down so the brightness is actually goes down instead of goes up. So if we look at this, it has brightness at the beginning, and then right around here it kind of shuts off a little bit. So it contributes towards that LFO that's going da 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 da, loud first part, soft second part. So all with one macro, in one macro, one fell swoop. I mean, let's just turn this off. Here we go. See how it's much brighter, much more aggressive, because it doesn't have these guys affecting the volume, and it doesn't have envelope 3 bringing the shelf down, bringing the high shelf down. Now, why did I not just do this? Why don't I just bring the highs down, period? It makes it a little bit easier. The reason is, if I just put this here, it means that it's going to be pretty dulled down the entire time. By having it be number 3 here, I can get the initial attack to still be strong, and then it can kind of go off and do its thing. I think that's the only place that I did envelope 3. Yep, looks like it. So off the hook there, pretty straightforward. These were nothing, but dimension expander as well. there you go. It's also 1 has a roll there too. So if we look at the patch that it was before versus what it sounds like now, it's night and day. So let's just pull it up. Farmhouse. And there we go. So before, literally a super saw turned into this. So I'm going to encourage you here to try to take these presets that I'm giving you, tweak them until there's something different, completely new, save it, make it save it as a new thing. Then also try to do that with your own patches. You're going to get so far away from what anyone else is doing if you're tweaking your own patches constantly than if you're tweaking my patches or preset pack. So long ass video, but I wanted to show you again the white noise, the modulation oscillator, which we all know can be a pain in the ass and sucks sometimes, and modulating modulators. Just trying to go a little bit deeper and think a little bit more outside the box than just telephone cut off. So, any mastering requests, as always, Ryan at OCCstudios.com. Hope you guys put up with this track. I'll try to make the next one better. So, till next time.